my conversation with Olga, the director of Ensemble Productions, was about how we could work together in making decorations for the ballet. And subsequently I was invited backstage, and I've invited other people backstage like yourselves, because I had this thought about how drawing ballerinas could be something modern, not just something of a bygone age. So Degas spent many years drawing ballerinas at a ballet school, but it's said that he didn't draw them from life, he drew them from memory.
Obviously the Ballet Russe involved great composers like Stravinsky, great impresarios, and later in the 20th century Prokofiev, with Romeo and Juliet, things like that. So, it's always interesting to see when an event can happen 100 years later. A favourite thing of the Tsars, the famous story of Nicholas II and his brother and the Ksyshinskaya, which was then subsequently turned into a museum in St. Petersburg, where the Communist Party took over the home of this great ballerina. So the idea could have been, in the end of the 19th century, that Russian princes could go and view the athletics of ballerinas. Therefore, a lot of the music written for ballet, as we were saying with Lorenzo, is not necessarily great music. Of course, you've got great composers like Tchaikovsky, but with ballet starting off in Italy and France, a lighter form of entertainment than opera or operetta even, and ballet not necessarily being so importantly featuring the music, but something of athletic, acrobatic performance, yeah. So we're going to see more traditional looking ballet tutus, and then we're going to see more experimental modern costume. Very young performers, a lot of whom saying they were in Vienna yesterday and they'll probably be in America tomorrow. Really great stars.
The exhibition last year at the National Gallery was all about that. So they brought quite a lot of ballerinas done in oil pastel. And of course we've all grown up with these famous images of groups of figures in these dark, pale rooms with sort of side lighting from maybe a window or an open window or a mirror, with the reflection of these girls, who are often quite stocky and short. So there's something of a grotesque image that I realised that was actually true. At the backstage, I was first of all shocked at my first visit when I saw ballerinas dressed in puffer jackets and covering up their body because it's very cold backstage.
Well, so it's very cold during the rehearsal and very hot during the performance because of the lack of audience
in the room,
of heat in the auditorium.
A natural heating
and then
system.
There's like a radiator coming with all the audience body heat, and so at backstage during the performance it was sweltering, and you could see they were sprinting off stage, and then they were puffing like athletes had just done a 100-meter sprint, because of course it's like 8 to 10 minutes of athleticism.
And often they have to wait for the whole production for their number, so they're doing maybe just one act, but during the whole evening and in the day when they're rehearsing, they're there, and so we were able to get very close to them and talk to them. So you're from Milan Opera and you're from St. Petersburg Opera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So you're dressed as a Spanish matador.
Don't you?
Carmen, yeah. Fantastic. And are you doing another number after that?
No, just this one. I get to dance with this beautiful ballerina. I'm quite lucky.
Excellent.
Have you danced together before?
This is the first time we've done that here.
Yeah.
And what productions are you doing this year?
I don't know. We'll see. I think we're doing Giselle as well.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll see what else.
And do you like performing in London?
Yes, of course. I love London.
Tell me what about the audience in London is different to Russia and to other countries in Europe?
Well, I used to work here. I used to work here at Royal Ballet, so coming here and being able to show how much I've grown is also really exciting, especially with phenomenal ballerinas.
And do you like performing in London?
Yeah, of course. For me, it was the first time in London, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Congratulations.
How are you finding London as a city?
I love London. Such interesting city, and I was here just visiting, but this is the first time I'm dancing here.
And do you find that the audience is appreciative? Are they enjoying?
Yeah, the audience was amazing. Very warm and like into it. Very.
And tell me,
exciting.
both of you, what are your favourite ballets to dance?
Many,
hard.
too many. Yeah, everyone is special in some way, so it's hard to choose.
It's exciting to dance with interesting people.
Yeah, and different things also. Challenging.
And both of you, can you just briefly say where you've danced over the course of your careers, from where you trained and different companies you've danced with?
I trained in La Scala Ballet School, and then I went to Berlin for 4 years, and then I came back to La Scala's theater. Yeah.
So I am from Montana, but I went and trained in Russia when I was really little. Went through all the Bolshoi Ballet Academy. Graduated. Came here to work at the Royal Opera House in London after Prix de Lausanne, and then I went to work in St. Petersburg, Russia, kind of as a soloist already, and kind of grew my career there.
And has ballet changed in recent years with different tastes, or with different, the approach to training and people, dancers' expectations maybe when they go through?
And the different technical schools that there are, I mean, compared. Yeah.
Well, I think it's definitely it's very important how you feel in your body, what fits you best in terms of technical kind of ability in schools and stuff. But definitely ballet has changed in the way it's become more technical. Also, the emotions are more demanding. You can't really go on stage anymore and just do something that's very good and clean. You have to add a lot of emotion all the time because the audience has seen all of this already on videos and YouTube, and so they want to see it live. They want to feel that same kind of rush.
Yeah.
Montana, it's perhaps as far as possible as you could imagine from classical ballet. I mean,
Montana is really far, and I think kind of the fresh air and wholesome values really gave me a lot when I was little. And my parents always really supported me to go and pursue my dreams. So when I chose to go to Russia for ballet school, it was something that they didn't think was crazy. At first, they maybe weren't super supportive. So they're like, "Oh, I don't know if that's maybe the best place to go. Let's try maybe something a little bit closer." But then, when they realized that was really the best opportunity they could give me, they supported me and gave everything. And so going to Russia was just me proving that I could do it. And at first, it was, of course, like super difficult, very much survival of the fittest. But when you get into that kind of mentality of you just got to be the best to be the best, and you do as much as you can to get there, and you work hard and spend all your free time doing that, and then you kind of actually achieve it, you not only prove to other people, you really prove to yourself that if you focus on a goal, you can really achieve it no matter what.
maybe just to describe to the audience in Britain, people watching, what the experience, what the Ballet is like, what is special about it.
Разницу в публике.
Так что публика очень всегда
She's saying that wherever you go, any country,
огромным удовольствием
Ballet
принимает
is
все спектакли.
always very welcomed and accepted, and
И в любом
if it
случае
touches,
примет
gets straight to your heart, then it doesn't really matter where it is. It's always
Is it like magic?
это как magic, да? Как
Ну, я
говорят.
художник по свету, я уже больше 40 лет в Большом театре работаю.
Misha's been working at Bolshoi more than 40 years, and actually here at the Royal Opera House, every time he comes over, they call him Misha's Magic. So every time when he works, like people come over and sit and watch him working, and everyone calls it like Misha's Magic. Misha's doing magic again.
Это лес такое,
Yeah.
такое прозвище дал мне в Ковенгардене еще с 2004 года.
The life room in the Slade was closed just after I left and was mostly empty. The life drawing that I mostly did was done either outside or at the Royal Drawing School and after the Royal Drawing School. The idea that art schools that had money bequeathed has really shown how art education in this country has often gone awry. Work from observation, as I mentioned yesterday to somebody from the Royal College, remains within the field of traditional arts and crafts schools, so like Brazilian guilds or the Royal Drawing School. But I do find that working from observation has almost been scrapped after the goldsmiths' Brit art revolution. Now, internationally, that's not really the case with art schools in Italy, France, and America. So places like the Academy of Arts New York, the Studio School, and indeed the Bologna Academy, the Paris École des Beaux-Arts, you name it, even Russian academies still very much focus on work from observation incessantly, and only through practice do people actually achieve the possibility of technically copying and interpreting what they see. Now, of course, it's the interpreting is the thing that makes art interesting. There's no point being a kind of photographic painter unless that's your concept. Now, the idea of the conceptual art being funded and propagated by great political propaganda machines like the CIA in America was something I discussed with one of my teachers at the drawing school who had spent a long time there, and he did mention this as a sort of reality that the Western art in the Cold War needed to be different to the kind of communist social realism of Chinese and Russian painting, and hence the idea of propagating this myth of the crazy artist, the drugged up Jackson Pollock, or the sort of mad man who is coming from the outsider art, was something I wrote about in my thesis at the Slade, where I examined artists like Dubuffet collecting deliberately and unlearning to draw the art of the insane, the collections of his work, then emulating the deliberate, shocked and shell-shocked art of people post-war. And then internationally, this cottoning on as a trend in the galleries throughout Europe and the Western museums, as further on young students studying this will take this as a starting point rather than something that conceptually should be arrived at in a certain age. And I think our time doesn't really reflect, the new generation is not shell-shocked. It's not necessarily a generation that's lived through war or through incredible political upheaval like in the past. And so is that still relevant in the 21st century? I think there's still a very important role to be had from figurative painting, and it's sort of, again, the question is it from a bygone age? The paints down here are some of which I made myself out of pigments and filled tubes, literally by mixing oil paint. It's a traditional technique that I learned at the Royal Drawing School. So I've got my Prussian blue and various other pigments that I collected from Europe, by going to various shops like Zecchi's in Florence, where I put the pigments that I wanted into my palette to be different to a standard palette that most painters have. And then I'm just mixing the paints with more linseed oil and technical materials to make it more matte or glossy. It's a very much thick on thick, alla prima, almost impressionist way of working here, where the whites are thicker and then the shadows a little bit more spread out with the use of the brush.